Ukraine, I had somebody, Breslov Mashpia, someone who teaches classes online, who called me right before Rosh Hashanah, and he's like, David, like straight up, this is crazy. Because I don't know how are you gonna go now? Like, okay, great, we're Breslovers, changed our life, I'm with you. I have a wife, I have kids, there's a war going on in Ukraine. How am I going to explain to anybody that I'm going and doing that? Doesn't make any sense. It's okay, you go and it's really hard one year, but like we might not come back because like something. Okay, so Rav Natan says in Likutei Halachot that if there's a year that comes and there's a war going on at the time of Rosh Hashanah, he says you should still go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. Rav Natan said that if the path to Rabbeinu was paved with knives, I would crawl to be by the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Now that might not make any sense to you. But that's really when you gotta go for it. All the biggest blessings in my life came when the Rebbe said something and it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I chose the Rebbe's Eitzah over my own thought at that moment. That doesn't mean all the time. But those critical moments where it's like that, you hold on to the Rebbe, everything you got. Yeah.
I forgot which Rebbe once said it, a different vision, it's Rebbe, whatever. So it says, I forgot what was the beginning, but he said that like, do you understand everything that Hashem does or whatever? So it says, no. So it says, and I don't want to understand God, whatever he does, because if I understand, then he's not God.
Right.
And you just said that the tzaddik is complete elokut. It's like it's Ein Sof.
Right.
It's the biggest attachment, like connection to Hashem.
Right.
So with the tzaddik is the same thing.
Yeah, of course.
You need to not understand what he says and do it anyway.
Yeah, it's obvious. If you go to law school, right? If you go to law school, you don't want professors who have the same amount of knowledge as you do. You wouldn't pay all that money to go there. That would be absurd. You want to go to teachers who know much more than you. When the professor tells you, by the way, this is the best way to win the case, you don't think to yourself, yeah, but you know what? I really think that this would work better. What do you know? You don't know anything. You just went to law school. But somehow when it comes to spirituality, which is much more intense, which is much harder, which is requires much more knowledge, all of a sudden there are tzaddikim who dedicated their whole entire lives to figuring out how this thing works. And now we come from wherever we come from and be like, nah, he doesn't know more than me.
What if you're the tzaddik though, that got reincarnated and sitting in that class and you know more than your Rebbe?
So you know how you find out?
How do you know?
You have to first be a chassid.
This is,
The Babich Rebbe became the Babich Rebbe because he was a chassid to his father-in-law. That's how it works. You can't just become the tzaddik. You have to first attach to a tzaddik and you become a tzaddik. Yoshua ben Nun, how did he become the redeemer of the Jewish people? Really, I want to know. How did Yoshua ben Nun conquer all 31 kings of Eretz Yisrael? That's crazy. The Midrash says there was nothing special about Yoshua at all. He had no unique capabilities, no unique features. It says about Yoshua, he never left the tent of his Rebbe. When they went up to Har Sinai, Moshe got up to the top, and everybody, depending on their level, got to lower and lower levels. Who got highest beside Moshe? You would think Aaron. Aaron was the Navi, Aaron was the Kohen Gadol, Aaron for sure got there second. Maybe the Zkenim, these great Chachamim. You know who got up second highest? Yoshua ben Nun. You know why? Because he did whatever Moshe said. Moshe reached the peak. Yoshua was the only one humble enough to admit that he didn't know as much as his Rebbe, and he was okay with knowing that and living like that. And because of that, he saved the Jewish people. If Esther would have thought that she knew as much as Mordechai, she never would have saved the Jewish people. I want to tell you something, by the way, as an added point. Moshe couldn't get to the 50th gate of consciousness. It said that only when he passed away he was able to experience the 50th gate. However, Yoshua, his name is Ben Nun. Ben means the son, or the product of. Nun is 50, Gematria 50. That means, and this is a very deep thing, I heard Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg say this, there's a certain level that a chassid can get to that a tzaddik can't get to. Because the tzaddik is not a chassid.
By tzaddik, because it was told in Talmud.
No, it's tzaddik, like the tzaddik. The tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, can only get to the 49th gate because he can't also be a chassid.
So if he was a chassid, then he could.
Then you get the 50th gate while you're alive.
So what's the power? Can you repeat again the power of a chassid that allows him to access the 50th gate? Is the fact that he recognizes his own
Lackings, and he allows someone who knows more to him to guide him.
But I'm assuming, of course, Moshe did that. It's Moshe.
Right.
So of course, he was in front of Hashem, face to face.
Right.
And he said, "Okay, I'll write down everything you tell me to write down." And
Exactly. He was following Hashem.
Oh,
so
very
why
good.
not?
So I'll tell you something amazing. By the way, don't get this twisted. This isn't Christianity, but I'm just going to tell you the story because we've been together for years. I feel like you guys are vessels for it. Okay. There was a time that a person had tremendous back pains, crazy bodily pains. And he goes to the Baal Shem Tov, and he tells the Baal Shem Tov, I feel like I'm dying, and I have no idea what's going on. The doctors don't know what's going on. I literally feel like I'm dying from the inside out. I don't know what's happening. The Baal Shem Tov says, because you have to do tshuva. If you do tshuva, you'll stop. This will stop. So he said, I already did tshuva. He said, but you have to do tshuva in front of the tzaddik of the generation.
In front of himself, basically.
Yeah. And he refused. He said, I'm not doing that. And he died. Somehow, some way, it's a higher level to mevatel yourself to a person than it is to mevatel yourself to Hashem. Because Hashem, of course, he knows more than me. But I'm actually going to let another person guide me. That takes the highest level of humility.
I think you need a prerequisite to that.
Of course, no, you can't just go on smichaonline.com and
No, I mean, like, how can you have reverence in front of Hashem if you don't already have a physical human being to be afraid of? Like Rabbi Yochanan, when he was dying, he's
Right.
like, may you fear, you know?
Right.
And they were saying, why should we be afraid of people?
Right.
And it's like, listen, if you can't be afraid of people, how are you going to be afraid of God?
right.
So it's counterintuitive. I mean, it's kind of opposite than what we would think.
Oh yeah, okay, so we're gonna, no, it's good, it's good. We're gonna pray our Vit. The Gabbai says so.
I just think
No, it's a good idea. We're gonna pray our Vit and we'll take more questions. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, one more thing. There was I heard this story from Rav Moshe Weinberger. This is the story of my life. And you asked what it means to live with Rabbeinu. So this is the story. You ready? In the Holocaust, there was a great Rebbe, a great tzaddik. And he got to the camps. You know what happens in the camps? They strip you down to nothing. They shave your hair. And you're just like any other Jew. It doesn't matter what you did in your lifetime. Even if you're Rav, whatever, and you're next to Billy, in the show, it doesn't matter. You're the same. You're a Jew. So what ended up happening is this great Hasidic master was in the same camp as a very secular, non-reverent Jew. He knew that he was a Rebbe, but he didn't call him Rebbe. He called him by his last name. Let's call it like Schlossberger. Okay? Hey Schlossberger, what's going to happen today? What do you think is going to happen today? No, what do you think? And the Rebbe, obviously, because he was incredibly humble, he never said anything. He never said, you should call me this. He never said this. He goes, yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. And it ended up being that these two guys who were diametrically opposed in every way besides the fact that they're Jewish became best friends. And every day they were hanging out, and he'd say, yo, Schloss, what's going on today? He's like, I don't know. It's going to be, hopefully we'll survive, you know? Whatever, that's their relationship. All of a sudden, one day, the Germans come into their battalion, their place where they're sleeping, wakes them all up and says, come outside. We need to dig a ditch. So for anyone who doesn't know, that means you're going to dig your own ditch. They bring them to a place, you dig a ditch, and then they shoot you in the head and you fall in that ditch, and that's the end of your life. And they all are getting a whiff of the fact that this is probably what's going to happen. They take them all to this place, and they say, dig. And they have no choice because, you know, they're going to shoot you if you don't. So they dig a whole gigantic ditch, like a big ditch. I'm not talking about like a small ditch. I'm saying like from a very far distance from one side to the other, a huge crater. And then the Germans said, we're going to play a game. I want everyone to jump from one side of the ditch to the other. If you're able to jump from one side to the other and make it to the other side, you'll live. If not, this will be your last moment of your life.
Which was impossible.
Which was impossible. Even an Olympic jumper couldn't jump from one side to the other. So what do you think the secular Jew, with no reverence for Judaism, and the rabbi said to his friend, this Hasidic Rebbe? He said, I am not going out like this. I'm not going to play this game. They could shoot me here right now. I'm not going to jump over this Olympic-sized hole and then die in the middle of the ditch, or they shoot me in the head because I don't make it to the side. I'm not going out like that. The Rebbe looks at him dead in the eyes, which he didn't do this entire relationship. He looks at him and he tells him, listen to me right now. When the Germans say jump, close your eyes and jump as high as you freaking can. And he never saw the Rebbe like that, and this is a very unusual moment. This is a very stressful moment, very emotional moment. We didn't know what it was, but he said, okay. All of a sudden, the Germans start screaming out loud, jump! The next moment, you hear bullets shooting. Everyone is dead in the middle of this ditch, except for the Rebbe and this guy. And they're on the other side. And they open their eyes, and he looks at the Rebbe, looks at the ditch, and he sees they're alive, and the Germans are just looking at them, not knowing what's going on. And he says to the Rebbe, now he finally calls him Rebbe. He said, Rebbe, how did you do that? He said, me? This is not a question. I closed my eyes, and I held on to the coattails of my ancestors, and they carried me. You? That's a question. And he responded back, that's also not a question, because I held on to you.
You mean he held on to him?
Yeah. Rabbeinu is holding on to the coattails of thousands of years of ancestry. And we just gotta hold on to him. Okay?
I guess really quickly, in our generation, we have access to so many beautiful texts from Lubavitcher Rebbe, from Rabbeinu, and like all these different types of. You can learn so much Chassidus and it's so beautiful and it's all so sweet and so many different types of Torahs are sweet. You almost, is it our job in our generation to cleave to one tzaddik, or can we have them be inspired by so many?
You can be inspired by everything, but this is something that people won't say in this generation because they don't want you not to learn Chassidus. To be a Chassid means that I have a Rebbe and I do everything he says. They don't want to say that because you're secular and they want you to do tshuva, and so like you're finally enjoying Torah because you're learning Chassidus and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. But Chassidus means I'm a Chassid. A Chassid means I have a Rebbe and what my Rebbe says I do. If you don't have that, then you never actually get to experience the blessing of Chassidus. You'll have the sweetness of it, but you won't have the blessing of it. And ultimately, I didn't come here to go halfway, you didn't come here to go halfway. At some point you're going to be married, you're going to have kids, you're going to have a job. It being sweet won't be enough then. You're going to actually need to see, where's the jangi?
Rabbi, I just want to say, sometimes it's also like you may want to follow a Rebbe,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean like as a mentor he wants to be your mentor. Like it doesn't mean that he wants you as his student necessarily. He might not tell you that, but you kind of feel that. So what do you do in that case? You know what I mean?
The tzaddik emet wants you as his student. So you should pray to Hashem very, very hard to find whoever
you
that
have
is.
to have it be him,
Yeah.
or you can
Yeah.
listen.
How did Rabbeinu figure out the 10th Psalm on the Tikkun Klali? And when you say it, what do you gain out of it?
Rabbi Nachman said that since the beginning of time, since Adam HaRishon, tzaddikim have been trying to figure out how do we have restoration, rectification for wasted seed. The Arizal speaks a lot about what happens when there's wasted seed. I'm not going to get into all of it. Basically, it's a very, very challenging thing to do tshuva from. But Hashem tasked the tzaddikim with trying to find ways to heal from everything, okay? Rabbi Nachman said, nobody was able to find it, even though people got very close. Hashem gifted me and told me the tikkun. He says, what's the tikkun? 10 specific prakim of Tehillim, when he first made the announcement, he didn't actually say which prakim those were. Then, before he passed away, he said the actual prakim, which is Tikkun HaKlali. Why is it called Tikkun HaKlali? Because it means the all-encompassing Tikkun. Because essentially, Rabbi Nachman teaches in the Quran that every type of blemish or every type of lacking is really a blemish of the Brit, no matter how you cut it. So what's the all-encompassing healing? Tikkun HaBrit. Rabbi Nachman says, here's the tikkun, here's the remedy. If for some reason you happen to waste seed, say Tikkun HaKlali, and no damage will be done. That doesn't mean that you should have this in one hand and have something else in another hand, because, okay, I got the tikkun, but if for some reason it happens, and it happens, say Tikkun HaKlali.
More than once.
Say it. A lot of Breslovers, they say it every day, whether they do it or they don't do it, because, like, you know, obviously if it's that powerful, and I don't even know how far-ranging this is, somehow all of my lackings have to do with Pagama Brit, even if I'm not wasting seed, so let me say the Tikkun HaKlali, right? Rabbi Nachman said that if you come to my grave when I pass away and you say Tikkun HaKlali, doesn't matter where you are, even if you're in hell, I'm going to come down to that place and lift you out of that space. You say this and you give one pruta, 1 shekel, 1 coin, 1 penny, and I'll take you out from wherever you are. Somehow, this is very powerful. Rabbi Nachman once said, I'm sure of everything that I said, but I'm very sure of Tikkun HaKlali. You hear that? I'm sure of everything I said, but I'm very sure of Tikkun HaKlali. This, and then we got to pray our Vit.
So I know that when it comes to other sects of Hasidism, like let's say Chabad, for example,
Yeah.
they're very big on like the Baal Shem Tov's dream where they fill the flood like
Chutza minasecha chutza. Go out.
to spread the well springs of
Yeah. Chassidus.
and that's why like that's also what spread set up the Chabad house all over the world, beautiful things. So then do we, as Hasidim of Rabbeinu, do we have to spread, let's say, and I know of course that we have to send our money to go and help reprint his works, everything like that. The whole idea that Breslov.org was like completely, anything they make, they go right back into it.
We have to be
But do we have to now spread, like amongst our friends, and say, you have to let Rabbeinu, you have to do this?
Yes.
Okay, but to what point where it doesn't turn someone away from it?
So then you have to pray a lot to make sure that you have the wisdom of how to connect, what to say, what to do. You don't need much. You know, I once heard somebody tell me, like, sometimes I'll tell something over that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said, and sometimes it hits, and sometimes it doesn't. But every single time I ever said something Rabbi Nachman said, it hit every time. Everybody have a great night. Let's pray our Vipas with Hashem.
Rabbi, I have a question.